Imagine you are on a commercial flight. You're flying from London to Nairobi, Kenya. You look around the cabin and you see, several women dressed in these bright, colorful dresses.
Right.
They're wearing high heels. Their faces are fully made up. It's a very vibrant scene. But then, right as the flight attendants announce the initial descent, something entirely unexpected happens.
Yeah, this is such a striking image.
It really is. These sane women get up, they head to the lavatories, and they completely erase the identities they boarded with. I mean, they scrub off the makeup, they swap the high heels for thick socks, and they pull on these heavy, dark jilbabs that cover everything but their faces.
Right, the full transformation.
Exactly. By the time the wheels touch down, they look like entirely different people. It's like they have physically and spiritually braced themselves for the world they're about to step into.
Yeah, the transformation right there in the airplane aisle is just, it's one of the most vivid details we have for today's deep dive, because it really forces you to wonder, what kind of place requires you to change your entire moral armor just to land there.
Right. And that is exactly what we are exploring today. Welcome to our deep dive. Today's mission is really to figure out how society pieces itself back together, both its lost art and its very definition of goodness after total collapse.
It's a huge question. I mean, when the map is completely erased and the government collapses, does a nation just cease to exist?
Right, or does it mutate into something else? So to get into this, we're pulling from two incredibly distinct sources today. The first is this deeply immersive 2011 anthropological dissertation by Annalisa Jacobson. She actually spent time living with Somali refugee women in the Eastleigh neighborhood of Nairobi.
Yeah, a neighborhood which is often called Little Mogadishu, by the way.
Exactly. And we are pairing her on-the-ground fieldwork with something totally different. The liner notes from an Osiris Studio mastering project.
Which is such a cool project. It's titled Sweet as Broken Dates.
Yeah, it's this massive, painstaking restoration of an archive of lost Somali music from the 1970s and 80s.
And the contrast between these two sources is really what makes it so compelling for us to look at.
Totally. Because before we can understand those heavy, dark robes on that airplane, we really have to understand what was lost. We have to rewind to Somalia before 1991.
Right, because the music from that Osiris project paints a picture of a culture that feels, well, it feels worlds apart from strict conservative robes.
Worlds apart. It feels like an alternate universe, honestly.
It really does. So the Osiris project involves the digitization of just a portion of this massive archive. We're talking about 10,000 hidden cassette tapes.
10,000. That is wild.
Yeah, and when you listen to these tapes, you are hearing a veritable music mecca. Mogadishu in the 1970s and 80s was this incredibly cosmopolitan city.
Yeah, the sources described this deeply funky, vibrant music scene. You had these supergroups driving it, like the Waberi Band.
Oh, the Waberi Band was huge. And it wasn't just the music, right? It was the whole street life.
Exactly. I was reading some of the descriptions of that era, which is often called swinging Mogadishu, and you had women walking around the capital in miniskirts and high heels.
Right.
Western-style fashion was ubiquitous, and the music was this amazing blend of local traditions with, funk and soul. People were literally traveling from across the world to experience this city.
Yeah, it was a major cultural hub.
But then you have to ask, how does a society operating at that level of vibrant cosmopolitan energy just stop?
Well, it stops through a total catastrophic collapse.
Yeah.
In 1991, the government of Siad Barre falls.
Mm.
And the ensuing power vacuum doesn't just lead to a new administration.
Right, it's not just an election.
No, it triggers a brutal clan-based civil war that effectively dissolves the entire state. Hundreds of thousands of people are forced to flee. They're entirely shattering the physical nation as they knew it.
Just a complete tragic fragmentation.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is how the liner notes of the music project actually point out that the physical cassette tapes themselves carry the trauma of this collapse.
Oh, wow. Like physically carry it?
Yes. They were buried, they were hidden to survive the war, and they were severely degraded by time and weather.
Mm-hmm.
The restorers made a specific note that they tried to clean the audio, quote, without abandoning the sweetness in their brokenness.
The sweetness in their brokenness. I mean, that is such a haunting phrase.
It really is.
Okay, let's unpack this because it makes me think of a vibrant vinyl record playing this incredible funk track.
Okay.
And then someone just violently shatters the record into 1,000 pieces across the floor.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
And the survivors who were trying to pick up those pieces, They aren't just facing the impossible task of gluing a record back together. They are holding all these different shards, looking at each other, and desperately arguing over what the original track list even was.
Yes, that is the core of the crisis right there. When the state completely vanishes, the argument over the track list becomes a literal matter of survival.
Right.
You've got various factions. Some are organized along strict clan lines. Others are motivated by different religious interpretations, and they were all vying to define what went wrong.
And obviously we're just impartially looking at what the sources report here, but you can see how this debate isn't just political for them.
No, it's totally existential. It's about how did we lose our country and what rules do we need to follow so we never lose ourselves again.
So if the physical ground is gone and the old world is shattered, where do the survivors even begin to establish a baseline of reality? Like, who is actually writing the new rules?
Well, to see that process in action, the dissertation actually takes us straight into the Eastleigh neighborhood of Nairobi.
Little Mogadishu.
Exactly. This is the main refugee hub. And the researcher, Annalisa Jacobson, shares this personal experience that perfectly illustrates just how intense this rulemaking process is.
Right, the toenail polish story.
Yes, the purple toenail polish. So she's sitting in a room interviewing an elderly Somali poet. There are about a dozen women in the room with them.
Okay.
And the researcher is wearing a long, modest robe, really trying to be respectful of the local customs. But as she shifts her weight, her bare right big toe slips out from under the hem of her robe.
Oh, no.
And she happens to be wearing bright purple toenail polish.
I mean, I can already feel the tension in the room just reading about it, just from a single toe.
The reaction is instantaneous.
Yeah.
One of the women gasps. She leans over, whispers to a friend, and then outright interrupts the elderly poet mid-sentence.
Wow. Just stops the whole interview.
Completely stops it. She looks around the room and asks, "Auntie, do you remember that story of the girl who painted her toenails and then suddenly died?"
That escalated so quickly. I mean, from toenail polish to sudden death in 10 seconds.
Oh, and it goes further. Without missing a single beat, the rest of the women in the room collectively start building on this story.
Oh, what?
Yeah, they recount this tale of a quote-unquote worldly girl who died unexpectedly. And because her nail polish wouldn't come off, her body was considered impure, meaning she couldn't be buried properly in a Muslim cemetery.
That is so intense.
And the consequence, they informed the researcher, is that this girl went to hell. They actually point to a cooking stove in the corner of the room, look right at the researcher and say, "Do you see those hot coals?"
Oh my gosh.
They ask, "Would you want to live in there for all eternity?"
Yeah.
Because that is what hell is like, only hotter.
I am really trying to wrap my head around that interaction because you have a group of refugees who have survived a brutal civil war, total displacement, complete state collapse, and they are stopping their day to practically threaten a visiting researcher with eternal hellfire over purple polish.
Yeah, it sounds extreme.
It feels almost hostile, right? Like, why such a severe, disproportionate reaction?
Well, it definitely looks hostile to an outsider.
Yeah.
But the researcher identifies this as something called didactic morality.
Didactic morality. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, when there is no government to enforce order and no police to maintain the baseline of society, the people have to enforce the moral order themselves.
Oh.
Constantly.
So they are the police.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They genuinely believed they were trying to save her soul. And this ties into a foundational Somali concept of faith, which is known as iman.
Right, Iman.
Yeah, and in this context, iman is not a passive state of being. You don't just achieve faith and then coast on it. It's conceptualized almost like a physical reservoir inside your body, and that reservoir constantly leaks.
Oh, that's such a clear visual. So you have this baseline of faith, but just by existing in a complicated, messy world, it's draining out of you.
Right.
And you have to actively refill it.
Precisely. You refill it through strict daily rituals, through prayer, through modest dress.
Okay.
But crucially, you also refill your own reservoir by correcting the behavior of others.
Oh, okay. That makes so much sense now.
Right. By teaching someone else the right path, like warning a researcher about her toenail polish, you are actively performing your own piety. You're securing your own spiritual safety.
But that begs a massive question about the trajectory of this culture. If refilling your iman is the goal, why did the community decide that strict conservative rules were the only way to do it?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Like, why not return to that cosmopolitan, swinging Mogadishu culture they had before the war? The sources talk about this huge shift in the 1990s away from traditional Sufi practices toward much more conservative Akhwani or Salafi norms. Why did trauma trigger such a swing toward rigidity?
Well, it mostly has to do with the search for ultimate security. Before the war, the Sufi tradition was deeply, deeply ingrained in Somali culture.
Right.
And Sufism often involves mystical practices, poetry, the veneration of local saints. It's a very localized spiritual interpretation. But when your local world is completely destroyed by war,
Those local traditions probably feel insufficient.
exactly, or even worse, they might feel partially to blame for the moral decay that led to the collapse in the first place.
Wow.
So the Akwani movement, which really grew significantly after the war, advocated for a stricter, more globally aligned, literal interpretation of the Quran.
And again, we're just relaying the history here neutrally, but you can see the appeal of that when everything else is falling apart.
Exactly. They viewed many of the old Sufi practices as impure innovations. When everything around you is pure chaos, a strict, unquestionable set of global rules offers an incredibly powerful psychological anchor.
So it's this organic ground-level debate over spiritual authenticity. Everyone is trying to prove their iman is full. But if society is now relying on this intense daily enforcement of strict moral codes, who is doing the heavy lifting?
Yeah, someone has to manage it.
Right. Someone has to actually manage this community and police these boundaries.
And this is where the demographics of Eastleigh reveal a staggering paradox. The people enforcing these structures and holding the entire community together are almost entirely women.
Really?
Yes, up to 70% of households in Eastleigh are headed by women.
Wait, 70%? That is an overwhelming majority. I mean, if they are heading the households, they must be the economic engine as well, right?
They absolutely are. The interviews in the dissertation detail how women are running the businesses in the markets. They're managing the international relief networks, taking in orphans, and serving as the primary breadwinners.
Wow.
They are literally doing the physical and financial labor to keep the diaspora alive. Meanwhile, the men are frequently described in the research as being absent or just deeply stuck in the past.
I remember reading about a specific term the women use for that. Fadi kudir.
Yes, Fadi Kudir, which roughly translates to sitting around talking useless politics.
Useless politics.
Yeah, the men gather in cafes, they chew a mild stimulant plant called mira, and they just argue about the clan politics of a country they don't even live in anymore.
So the women are running the economy, they're raising the next generation, and they are enforcing the new moral codes. But if they have all the practical power, why are they the ones wearing the heavy jilbabs?
That's the paradox.
Right. Why are they the primary targets of this intense moral scrutiny?
Well, because the traditional cultural and theological view explicitly labels women as, quote, morally weaker.
Morally weaker. After doing all that work.
Yeah. The justification that's frequently cited in the community refers back to the creation story. The belief is that Hawa, or Eve, brought Satan to Adam.
Okay.
One local sheikh actually explained it to the researcher by saying that women inherently carry Satan on their backs.
On their backs. Wow.
Yeah, so because of this supposed inherent susceptibility to the devil's whispers, the community demands that women work twice as hard at their piety to prevent the moral collapse of the family.
Here's where it gets really interesting if you're listening to this. Think about the pure irony of that situation. Imagine you are holding up your family's finances right now.
Right.
It is like a community building a massive new structure, handing the heaviest, most critical load-bearing beams to a specific group of people, and then explicitly diagnosing those exact same people as having the weakest muscles.
That's a perfect analogy.
These women are bearing the entire financial, physical, and moral weight of the diaspora, yet they are constantly told they are spiritually fragile and need to be policed.
And their structural importance goes even deeper than just finances, actually. Somali culture heavily relies on cross-cousin marriage,
Okay.
meaning women frequently marry into different, sometimes rival clans. There's even a cultural saying, we marry our enemies.
Let's marry our enemies. That's powerful.
Right. So when the clan wars broke out, men were deeply entrenched in their specific lineages. But a woman who was born into Clan A and married into Clan B became a living bridge.
Wow, yeah.
Women are uniquely positioned to navigate across the rigid clan lines that destroyed the country, precisely because their identities straddle those lines.
Which makes their role even more critical. They are literally the only ones who can actually stitch the fragmented pieces of the society back together.
Exactly.
But this incredible pressure cooker of female-led reconstruction doesn't just happen in the abstract. It happens in Eastleigh. And the physical reality of this neighborhood completely redefines how we usually think about refugee spaces.
Oh, absolutely. The geography of Eastleigh is extreme. It suffers from severe neglect by the Kenyan government. The researcher paints this visceral picture of the physical environment: immense, unavoidable mud, raw sewage running openly in the streets, and massive uncollected trash dumps.
The description of the mud really stuck with me. It's so thick and deep that when people put down heavy 2x4 wooden planks to act as makeshift bridges across the streets, the wood just sinks entirely into the muck.
Yeah, it just disappears.
And the locals even believe that evil jinn or spirits reside in the open sewage. It is a deeply hazardous physical environment.
But the crucial distinction is what happens when you cross the threshold into a Somali home in Eastleigh.
Right.
The moment you step out of that mud, the interiors of the homes are impeccably clean. Shoes are always left at the door, floors are scrubbed, the space is purified. There is this fierce maintenance of interior order against the exterior chaos.
If the physical exterior is that difficult to survive in, you would think the ultimate goal for every family there would be to leave.
Right, to get out.
Exactly, to get a visa, get on a plane, and reach the West. But the sources show a completely counterintuitive view of the outside world.
They really do. And to understand it, we have to look at the concept of the dhabar-adaygeen.
The dhabar-adaygeen.
Yeah, this is the Somali term for the abroad, usually referring to the United States, the UK, or Europe. Physically, the dhabar-adaygeen represents infrastructure, paved roads, functioning sewers, safety.
Well, things they don't have in Eastleigh.
Right. But morally, the dhabar-adaygeen is viewed by many in Eastleigh as highly polluted and incredibly dangerous.
That's wild. They see the West as a place of excessive, unmanageable freedom. There's actually a detail in the dissertation about a popular local song known as the 9/11 song.
Oh yeah, that song is fascinating.
It's about a mother lamenting that she cannot properly discipline her children in America because they will just pick up the phone and call the police on her.
Exactly.
The fear is that the West lacks religious focus, and that children there will inevitably lose their culture, their language, and their respect for their elders.
And this raises an important question, right? It flips the entire narrative of the refugee experience. We typically view reaching the West as the finish line, like the ultimate success story.
Right, the dream.
But for these mothers, the pristine streets of the West are a spiritual hazard zone. Moral purity, in their view, is defined by communal discipline and strict religious adherence, not by municipal infrastructure.
So it's the people, not the pipes.
Exactly. Eastleigh, despite the mud and the gin and the sewage, is seen as the safest place to actually practice being a proper Somali.
Which brings us right back to that airplane aisle from the very beginning of our deep dive.
Yes.
Those women flying from London aren't just changing clothes to fit in. They're leaving the moral pollution of the dhabar-adaygeen and sartorially acknowledging the moral gravity of Eastleigh. They are entering the spiritual headquarters of the diaspora. It's like Eastleigh acts almost like a spiritual detox center.
And the community takes that detox role incredibly seriously, especially for the next generation. There's this fascinating encounter the researcher has in a local Eastleigh shop.
Right, the boy from Ohio.
Yeah. She runs into a 10-year-old boy wearing a pristine white robe. He has braces on his teeth, and he speaks with a thick, unmistakable American accent. He's from Ohio.
I mean, what is a 10-year-old kid from Ohio doing wandering around the muddy markets of Little Mogadishu?
His parents sent him back. He tells the researcher he was sent to Eastleigh for the summer to be, quote, re-Somalified.
Wow.
His family in Ohio recognized the moral drift, so they sent him back to the strict rules, the communal policing, and the mud to learn discipline, to practice his language, and to protect him from the cultural erosion of the West.
So they outsourced his moral education back to the refugee camp.
Exactly. And the women of Eastleigh view it as their absolute duty to straighten these kids out.
So you have a community where women are carrying the entire economic load, navigating hostile clan divides, strictly policing each other's toenail polish, and managing the spiritual detox of kids sent from across the globe, all while trudging through raw sewage.
It's a lot.
That is an unsustainable level of tension. Where does the release valve open? Like, where do they get to celebrate the unified identity they are working so hard to build?
To see the joy, you really have to look behind closed doors at night. You have to go to the community centers and look at the weddings.
The dissertation describes a women-only wedding celebration in one of these Eastleigh halls. It sounds like an absolutely massive, vibrant event.
Oh, it's a massive party, but it is also a highly ritualistic political act. The music is playing loudly, and the women engage in a practice called dhabar-adaygeen,
Dhabar-adaygeen, okay.
which is a traditional form of poetry and singing. During the Baranbar, the singer will actively call out the names of different clan families, inviting women from those specific clans to step onto the carpet and dance together.
And remember, those clan divisions are the exact fault lines that tore their country apart in 1991. By explicitly calling the different clans out and having them dance together in one room, they are actively defying that history of violence.
Yes, and as they dance, the guests give gifts to the bride, often holding up U.S. dollars.
Which is a great detail.
Those U.S. dollars are deeply symbolic. They represent the global reach of the diaspora. It is the financial weight that these women carry, funneled from across the world, brought back into this single room in Nairobi to support a new union.
And then, at the height of the celebration, a profound shift occurs. The music completely stops.
Yeah.
All the women in the hall, hundreds of them, from rival clans carrying the weight of different traumas, they line up together, and they perform their evening prayers in total synchronized unison.
It's amazing.
In that moment, they actively ignore the clan lines that destroyed their past, and they submit to the shared, unified moral order they have built for their future.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a breathtaking synthesis of everything they have survived. They didn't just escape the collapse of their state, they physically and spiritually relocated it.
Right.
The Somali nation doesn't live within the borders of Mogadishu anymore. It lives in the restored funk cassette tapes. It lives in the daily debates over iman and modesty. It lives in the heavy robes worn on airplanes. And it lives on the dance floor of a muddy neighborhood in Kenya where women perform their unity into existence.
So what does this all mean? It is the ultimate testament to human resilience. You can take away the borders, you can collapse the government, you can shatter the vinyl record and scatter the pieces across the entire globe, and yet the identity survives.
It adapts and it endures.
Exactly. Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over today. If a society can do all of that, if it can pack up its entire essence and move it into the minds, the habits, and the daily moral choices of the people, does a country actually require a physical landmass to exist at all? Or is a nation ultimately just a shared moral project that its people agree to keep building every single day, no matter where they stand? Thank you for joining us.